Hey guys, Carrie for Homeland, Season 5, Episode 7, Oriole, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. The past few episodes have been really great, and I have to say this was another really great episode. This is definitely the episode where they're starting to give us answers. I definitely really liked everything that happened in this episode. There's some really big scenes in this episode as well. My only real complaint about this episode is I don't understand how people really aren't starting to suspect of Alison. I mean, it's getting pretty ridiculous as that's going on, but let's just get into this episode. There's a lot that happened, and let's get into it. So we start with Alison. She's going up the stairs of the building, and what I like about this scene is that it kind of shows us exactly what's going on with Alison. She hears the door slam, she locks down, then opens the door into the hallway. She locks the door, but checks behind herself first. She looks around, then closes the door, and inside she meets Ivan, who asks for the NATO details he wanted, but she says that the station is on lockdown, and he asks why she didn't cancel the meets and what's up, and she says that Saul smuggled the thumb drive out of the building and then met with During, and she says the hack files were on that thumb drive. So obviously Ivan asks why. Alison says she's been trying to figure it out. Ivan says Saul despises During, but Alison says that Carrie made Saul go extreme things, and then asks what if Carrie isn't dead. And Alison says that she saw a photo, not a body. She asks what if Carrie is alive, and going through the documents, she says she won't spend the rest of her life in prison, and Ivan says she is right. It's a long way to get them from these files. He says to talk to Saul, and she says he's under guard by Dar's men. Ivan tells her to make it happen, and he tells her no one does it better than her. She says she's played these men for years, and they trust her. And Ivan says again, talk to Saul, and that's really interesting, the way he talks about how, she's kind of just played all these men all her life, and this is something she's done. So I like that we saw that. I like that we see the faith that Ivan has in her. I like that we see what's going on with her. It's all really great stuff. I really enjoyed all of those scenes in this episode. Really, really great stuff in this episode, definitely. So basically, then we see that he asks what she's looking for in the files. She says something Russian intelligence, and Carrie goes through the files that were stolen. She looks at report after report, and then looks at once on Javadi. And During comes in, brings her some coffee. She thanks him. He asks if she found anything, and she says no. She's just a quarter of the way through it, and she takes a break, and he fixes a skolos, which is a castle. And he asks what she's looking for in the files, and she says something Russian intelligence would kill her for. Carrie says she hopes she finds nothing, because obviously she wants to know why these people are going after. There has to be a reason, and she hopes that this is all just a misunderstanding, that there's really nothing going on. And During says, what then? And Carrie says she would get Jonas, fly home, and go get Franny, and all go to the cabin she is there and never left. And Otto says it sounds nice, and Carrie says that Jonas wouldn't come with her anyway. She tells him they broke up, and During says he's sorry to hear that, and says Jonas is a good man, but says he's a lawyer. And he says Jonas keeps both feet on the ground, and During says his first wife was earthbound, and says most people are. You're born with wings or not, and Carrie considers, and I actually didn't find During that shady in this episode, I have to say. I don't think that During is working with Alison after all. I think this episode kind of showed that he's kind of more Saul 2.0 to Carrie. Like, he's giving her really good advice, and I like seeing that. So, honestly, I didn't find During that shady in this one, because, of course, now we know that Alison's working with Ivan. So, Alison puts the files in a flash drive, pockets it, goes down the hall, it works. Saul pays in her room. She asks Dar if he's going to keep it indefinitely, and Dar says he's being uncooperative and denies taking the thumb drive. Alison sets the drive down, says she found it on her desk where Saul was camping out in her office. She says it was in the top drawer and has the files on it, and Dar says, nice try. Alison says sleeping with Saul doesn't mean that she would perjure herself, and she also suggests that Saul could have made a second copy and gave it to During, and she has to take a run at Saul, but says not here. And at the hotel, she says Saul likes his creature comforts, and I don't know, I feel like Dar is kind of working with her on this, because it clearly seems like he is trying to play Saul as well, so it's very interesting as to what's going on here. So, Carrie prints a Berlin station report, leads through it. It's about Touchstone seeks Oriole. It's about Oriole's pariah status and then no further action. So, Carrie calls around to Iraq looking for Samir Kali, and she says she must be Satho when the woman says he's not there. She tells her she knew her father years ago and said it's important she speak with him. The woman hangs up, and Quinn then takes some medicine. Then Bibi comes in, says they will not attack Berlin and will go fight in the Levant instead. Here's the thing with Quinn this episode. Obviously, I'm really like the stuff with Quinn this episode, but it really felt like a different episode. It really did. It didn't really feel like it belonged with everything else going on here. It wasn't bad. It's just, I can understand people's complaints. A lot of people have said this season really feels like 3 different shows, and I can really see that. I mean, Alison and Saul and Carrie's, yes, that does go together, but Quinn's is really starting to feel like it belongs somewhere else. It's not that I don't like what they're doing with him. I think they're doing a really great job with keeping his character in here, but you gotta do something else to him. You can't just have him having this medicine, because honestly, it's kind of slowing things down. I was not nearly as into Quinn's plot as I have been in other episodes, because I kind of found it a bit unnecessary here. So, Quinn takes some medicine, BB comes in and says they will not attack Berlin, we'll go fight in the Lava Mountain instead. He says the brothers all agree. Quinn says he doesn't give a shit what they do. BB asks if they can help him get to Turkey. He says no. They offer to pay him, and he says $10,000 a week. And BB says his uncle's important and can pay. He says he collects ransom in North Syria. He gives his name as Abu, and Quinn says he's never heard of him. BB says come with them or wait for Zayd's brothers to come kill him. And BB says they're going tonight, and basically they want to help him out. So I like seeing that, but again, it really felt like a different episode. In fact, guys, I don't know about you, but I honestly would like a Quinn-centric episode. I want an episode where it just focuses on Quinn's storyline, because it is really good what's going on with him. You know, him having to protect himself because he is in as much danger as Carrie is really interesting. It's just starting to feel separate from what's going on with Carrie. It really feels like 2 different shows, and I would honestly like to see a Quinn-centric episode, which I know Homeland's never going to do. I kind of feel like Homeland's afraid of doing that, though. Focusing on one plot would really benefit them very, very well. I feel like Homeland's a show that really needs to do that, and I really would love to see them do that. I know they're probably never going to, but I hope they do. So, Quinn finds During in a chapel on his property. He asks her to come sit with him, then says it's a miracle it survived the war and the Red Army marching through. He says his mother hired a monk to live with them and says Mass when he was growing up. He says he found being Catholic difficult, and she says she was lapsed a long time. And Carrie says that he seems virtuous to her, and he says he's not, and Carrie asks if Laura can join them there to help track someone down. He says yes. Her phone vibrates, and it's Samir who calls her his Oriole, and she asks why he tried to contact her 5 months ago. He says someone named Smith or Jones contacted him, but he says he told them he would only talk to her, but he never heard from her. So she says that Oriole's on the shelf, he had flown the coop, and he says someone should have told him, and he was waiting for the phone to ring. He mentions Ahmad Nazari, and she says he died in a bombing, but Samir says no. He says he saw him in the neighborhood walking around, and he says it was sure was Ahmad. So Ahmad's not dead, and basically Dar then talks to Quinn, says he didn't know he was in Berlin. Dar asks if Saul mentioned during or joint operation with the Israels. Quinn says no, then asks to sit. Dar hands him a sandwich. Quinn says he fell in with some jihadists, and he says they just got out of prison and are looking for an escort to the Syrian border. Dar says they thought they were playing something big here in Berlin, and Quinn says they were. Dar says Quinn is impressive. He tells him one of them is Abu's nephew, then says they may get a paint and kill opportunity. Dar agrees. Saul rants to Alison about how he's a traitor and Otto, and During is his accomplice. He says it's a sure fucking insanity, and she says she thinks he took the thumb drive but can't really figure out why he'd do that. And Alison is really doing a good job of basically making Saul go crazy. She really is making him go crazy. He's really starting to think that he's responsible for this when he knows he's not, and that's the funniest part of this. The fact that Saul thinks he's guilty for this when we know that he's not, that's what's so funny about all of this. And he says, buy me 72 hours he needs, and Alison says she tried, and he says if he's shipped back, it will be a long-term purgatory. She asks why he needs 72, and he says he'll have the answer by then or not. She asks what he's waiting for, and Saul asks her if they're alone right now, and she says as far as she knows. She says they're not being monitored as far as she knows. He turns on a CD loud, then says, fuck you. He goes to the bathroom, turns on the faucets. He says he took the drive and gave it to During. So Alison asks why, and he says he's loyal to Carrie, and says she thinks her life is in danger because of something in the documents. So he says that's who he's waiting to hear back from, and Alison says she's not feeling well and fakes pain. She says she'll be fine, then fakes stomach pains. He leaves her alone in the bathroom. She sits and pants, and it really does look like she's not doing well, honestly. It looks like she's actually having some problems here. Maybe she's having a panic attack. Maybe she's worried this isn't going to go as well as she thinks. I mean, clearly Ivan is putting a lot of pressure on her. She groans and pants and then touches her head. She holds her nose and changes her breathing, and she then gets out her phone and sends a text. She calms down somewhat. She gets up, turns off the taps, and straightens her clothes, and she goes back into the room. And Laura brought Gabe with her, a.k.a. Newman, and Carrie thanks them for coming. Newman says he needs to find his friend Corsi, and Carrie says he's dead. He asks how she knows, and she says the SVR killed Corsi because he was a loose end. So she says she needs help finding these responsible for his murder, and she says First to find is Ahmad Nazari, and Carrie says he was a CIA asset, and she says he was supposedly killed in the bombing. Then his wife Jamila went to Jordan. Laura asked to see the documents. Carrie says she can't. Carrie asked to talk about it later. Newman asked for the Wi-Fi password, and Alison goes to Ivan to rant about Carrie being alive. Because obviously she thought that Carrie was dead. She thought that all this time their plan worked and Carrie was dead. And now that she knows she's alive, you can really tell that things aren't going well for Alison. This scene I really loved. You can tell that things aren't going well for her. My only problem with this episode, like I said, is that it just felt kind of scattered, really, it did. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, and Alison is by far the stuff I'm most interested in. I really like what's going on with Carrie, don't get me wrong, but Alison is probably the character I'm most interested in here. I mean, clearly she has this plan, but she's really worried it's not going to go well. It's very interesting. It really makes for a very compelling villain, and I love it. In fact, I think Alison has the potential to be one of the best villains we've had on this show. So Alison says that Ahmed could tell Carrie everything since he's in Amsterdam. She tells Ivan he's underestimating Carrie and says she's not willing to take that risk. Ivan says Alison is the greatest penetration into American intelligence and could be director one day. He says both of us know she loves this double game. He said she'd be a beached whale fish without it. Alison says she just doesn't want to get caught, and Ivan says he knows. And he says they will be waiting for Carrie in Amsterdam. And basically, they plan on killing her. So Carrie tells During that Saul gave her those files in confidence to not spread word on the internet. And Carrie says that people have died because of this, and she nearly did, and so did During. And obviously, there's a reason why. So Gabe comes in, says Jamila is in Amsterdam. Carrie says she'll get on the road while Gabe traces her closer. And Carrie says she has an expat friend there, and Loris asks for a decision on the docks, but During says that's for later. Quinn checks her passports and tells Zahir he can't come because it has a Jordanian stamp, and Zahir says he was on holiday, and Quinn says it's too much of a risk. The Jayeds argue that they don't need Quinn, and Bibi tells Zahir to get new papers and he can't go next time. The others head out with Quinn. Saul lies in bed when there's a knock at his door. He answers, and it's Alison. He asks if she's okay. She says that they should be together tonight, and he tells her to come in. And Amsterdam, in the Zeeburg district, Carrie parks her car, gets out in her brown wig. She gets into a taxi. The driver says he loves her brown hair. She asks how long he's been driving, and he says a few years, and says it pays for grad school. Azam then thanks her for getting him out of Iraq and giving him a second chance, and he asks if she wants to report. He says it was easy, and he found Jamila using her real name. He says that she's a widow and lives alone, and Carrie asks where. He cranks the car, they head out, and Jonas goes to see Theo and asks for Carrie, but he says that she left last night and says During is in the Staples. Jonas heads out that way, and he says he's looking for Carrie, and During says she's gone to Amsterdam. So you have two people looking for Carrie. You have Quinn looking for Carrie, and you have Jonas looking for Carrie. I feel like Jonas wants to make amends, while Quinn just wants to know where the hell she is, obviously, because he wants to protect her. So he says he's not sure, but she's still trying to find out what happened in Lebanon, and they both argue that they're worried about her, and basically During says he's concerned with her mental state, then asks how long their deal is with her, and During says that they made a mistake hiring her, and this is very interesting he said that, they've made a mistake here, because they've kind of put her back into that life that she didn't want, and Jonas is stunned. I mean, this is interesting. She's been working for them for 3 years. I don't know why all of a sudden During is saying this. And During says that she's unstable. They won't renew her contract, and says that she should not bear on his personal relation with Carrie, and obviously, while I think During's always going to be like a mentor to her, he obviously doesn't think it's safe for her to work in this line of work. So, During basically, he then says that should not bear on his personal relation with Carrie, and in Amsterdam, Carrie says that seems like a big house for a hairdresser. They sit and watch it, and Azam nods when Jamila comes out. She asks him to go ring the doorbell and asks if someone called a cab. She shows him a photo of Ahmed and also says to see if the house has an alarm. Azam goes and knocks. The door opens and he speaks, but Carrie can't see who he's talking to. He comes back to the cab, says it's Ahmad. She asks about the alarm system. He says none. Carrie says now they wait until he comes out so she can look in the house, and Dar then asks Saul if he wants to go out like an old actor, where you have to drag off stage, and Saul says that this moment will shame Dar in 6 months or so, and Dar tells the guards to put him directly on the plane, says he doesn't know what more he could do for Saul, who says he could have trusted him, and Dar says Carrie has brought him down like he always said she would. Saul tells him to fuck off, and Dar leaves, slamming the door behind him, and Saul continues packing and tells the guard he's calling for his laundry. So you really see that this part of Alison's plan really is working. Like I said, the whole thing with Dar and Saul turning against each other is really working out very well, and it's really interesting to see. especially because we know this is all Alison's plan. So Carrie and Azam sit. They see a man leave the house with a dog. Carrie tells Azam to call when Ahmed gets closer to coming back to the house. She gets out, and Azam pulls away to follow Ahmed on his dog walk. Carrie approaches the house, goes into a garage gate, then goes into the back of the house. She breaks the glass, unlocks a back door, then goes inside. She goes room to room rapidly, not knowing what she's going to find. And Saul then sits as the guard makes a call and says that they couldn't find his laundry, but will forward it. And he tells Saul they need to go. Saul leaves with the guard to escort him onto the elevator. Saul watches the numbers count down, then the doors open. Armed masked men grab Saul. They shove him into a van and drive away, and that was pretty crazy when that happened. Thing is, though, this happened last season. Saul was almost killed last season, so I really hope they don't do a repeat of last season with this, because obviously we know what happened with Saul last year, and I hope the same thing doesn't happen with this. We'll get into what happens, but Carrie searches the house, going through a desk and some drawers. She hears children and a noise, then hides. Then she peeks out and sees this noise from across the street. She finds a safe, but it's locked. Azam follows Ahmed, who goes to a park. He loses sight of him and has to get him out of the car. Carrie finds a laptop, and Azam sees two men approach Ahmed in the park. They pick up his dog, grab him by the arm, and pull him away. Azam tells her two men just took Ahmed, and he can't follow since he's on foot. Carrie says she'll meet him there. She grabs his computer, then hears a door open. She hears men speaking Russian. She's upstairs and they're down. She hides and pulls out her gun. A man comes in the room, checks the safe. He opens it, pulls out something, and walks out. One finds a broken glass, calls out to the other, and Carrie opens a window upstairs and hops out. She scrambles to recover, but one sees and takes a shot at her. She runs, and on the sidewalk, she looks around nervously, pulls her wig off after ducking into an alley. She takes it to the streets again, but then spots Azam's car. And she goes over, gets in, tells him let's go, but his throat has been cut, and she hops out of the car, hurries away. Saul is then brought to Itai. He's not being kidnapped here. He thanks him for the assist, and Itai asks what they're doing now. Saul says he's never defected before and doesn't know, and he's really not sure what they're going to do with this. Honestly, he really doesn't know. So Carrie drives down the road, makes a call, and it's Alison, and Alison takes the call. Carrie identifies herself. She says she's sorry to call her like this. Alison asks what she needs. Carrie says that she has questions about Baghdad and asks if she can meet her. Alison says yes, and Carrie says she's leaving Amsterdam. We'll call her later. She asks Alison to please not tell anyone about this. Alison promises not to. They end the call. Carrie drives on through the night, and that's how the episode ends. So I really love that ending because, of course, Carrie has no idea what Alison's really doing, obviously. So it's really intense stuff here. I overall, like I said, really like this episode. I just felt the Quinn stuff was very scattered. I do like what's going on with Jonas and Quinn, though. Is During really going to fire Carrie? I'm not really sure. This is a very interesting plot point that has come up with him now possibly firing Carrie. Will Jonas let it happen? I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. Alison's plan, she's honestly worried it's not going to go well. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. That's very interesting. Now that Alison knows Carrie's alive, what is she going to do from here? Obviously, she has to have some sort of ground plan. We just don't really know what it is yet, and that's going to be interesting to find out what exactly her plan is, because I definitely want to know what that is right now. As far as this whole thing between Carrie and, Carrie and Ahmed, what's going to happen with this? We're going to have to see what happens there. That's going to be very interesting. Saul and Itai, what is Saul going to do? Obviously, he's out of ideas like we see. He's out of ideas. He doesn't really know what he's going to do. We're going to have to figure out, we're going to have to see what Saul decides to do because he really doesn't know what to do here. Dar and Saul are at each other's throats, and I love every minute of it because as we know, this is all Alison's plan. It's really working well for her. We'll have to see what happens with that. Who's going to get to Carrie first, Quinn or Jonas? I'm really wondering what's going to happen with that. I know you guys saw this episode. Like I said, I'm really liking this season. I don't love this season, I have to tell you guys. I'm really into the Alison stuff the most. Everything else I really like Carrie's plot is really interesting. But Alison is really stealing the show. All of her stuff, I'm really loving a lot more than everything else going on in the show because I just find it a lot more interesting. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I will see you guys in my next, which will be for The Affair, which I have a lot to discuss about this week's episode, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.